Hi, I'm Kelly with citruscycles.ca. I'm here with the Bulls Monster EFS. It is a Bosch-powered full suspension electric fat bike. I'm here in beautiful Ladysmith on Vancouver Island, BC, Canada. And this is a bike I'm really excited about. Obviously, if you are riding on sand or snow, the fat tires are awesome. If you are a super technical, aggressive rider and want to do crazy stuff, this is awesome. But if you're just starting out at mountain biking and you want something that's really stable, secure, confidence inspiring, this is also an awesome bike. And that's what we're finding. A lot of our customers are loving this bike because despite what it looks big and heavy and cumbersome. It's the opposite. It feels light when you're riding it. It feels fun. It feels easy to control. It gives you lots of stability with these super wide tires. And it's just a great bike to be able to go ride trails that maybe in the past you would have been a little bit afraid of, because with these super wide tires, with the suspension, you're always in control. Your tires are on the ground. You can be safe and confident. So in this video review, I'm going to go through all the specs of the bike. I'm going to take you on a ride test, and for the details, current pricing, to order online, to set up an appointment to come try it here in Ladysmith or take advantage of our try at home program, you can visit our website at citruscycles.ca. There you'll find our contact information, so if I've forgotten anything in the video or you have questions, you can find our details there. And of course, we also offer free shipping anywhere in Canada. So this is an awesome bike to consider, and you can find all the details on it on our website at citruscycles.ca. Okay, so being a fat bike, we do have the Schwalbe Jumbo Jim 4-inch by 26-inch tires. Super wide. You can go really low on the tire pressure, down as low as 5 psi. And what that's going to do is it's going to let you float over sand like this, or snow as well, and gives you lots of traction, lots of control when you're in difficult situations, say riding on grass like this, or really rocky beaches, trails, all sorts of things like that. These tires do a really good job of. Now you may be wondering, do I need a full suspension fat bike? Well, it's really interesting because I rode the front suspension version of this bike, the Monster ES, for about a year. I loved it. It was a fantastic bike, but I always kind of had in the back of my mind, I sure wouldn't mind having that full suspension. Do you need it? Well, maybe. You could probably get away without it. I did. But now that I have it, it's fantastic because there's a couple things. So we've got the RockShox Monarch RT on the back here, a RockShox Bluto on the front. Now the tires obviously do provide some degree of suspension, right? Because if you get that tire pressure quite low, they are going to deform to some degree to help absorb some of those obstacles on the road. But at some point, the obstacle is going to be too big or you're going too fast and your tire will deflect. So the front suspension is helping to help you steer and not lose your balance, not be thrown off, because it's going to absorb that instead of deflecting the tire and kind of throwing you around. So the same thing actually happens with the rear tire, and it's maybe a little less obvious, but what this does is with the swing arm and the suspension here, it's actually keeping your wheel on the ground all the time. So with the hardtail version of this, there are times when that rear tire can kind of deflect and kind of throw you around, and you have to reduce your speed and really pick your line. With the full suspension here, you're basically keeping this wheel glued to the ground all the time, no matter what's happening, and so you have more control. I'm finding myself riding more confidently with the full suspension, obviously more comfortably, but also higher speeds and able to just kind of go and have fun and not worry about where I'm riding. So yeah, full suspension on a fat bike is super fun, lots of stability and control over the bike, and I definitely recommend that. Other features of the bike, I'm going to talk about the Bosch CX drive unit in a moment, but let's talk about the fact that we have a fairly large cassette on here. I think that's a 42 tooth, and you can find the details of that on our website. It is a Shimano Dior XT, so it's almost the top of the end, components for Shimano, which is really nice to see. We've got the one-way clutch here to tighten up the chain. It's the Shadow Plus, so we're bringing that cage in and avoiding the potential for damage that can sometimes happen with the drivetrain. We've got this nice pulley system here to keep the chain clear of the chainstay, especially important on a full suspension like that. So really, high quality components. carried over to the front here, for example, we've got a 180 millimeter hydraulic disc brake system, 180 millimeter rotor. This is the Magura MT5. It's a quad piston brake, so there's 4 pistons in there, which gives you great control over the bike, lots of modulation, really easy to stop. So that's the MT5 levers up here, and really nice to have over on the back. We have, I believe that's the MT4, nice big piston, but we don't need dual pistons on the back. Most of your stopping power is in the front. Just to make sure that this bike is super solid, we do have through axle on the rear and on the front. They are quick releases, which is handy should you need to change a flat tire. Speaking of tires, you can see these rims do have cutouts in them. This isn't the tube, by the way. This is just a liner that helps to protect the tube, and the cutouts help reduce the overall weight of the bike. And it is surprising when you come ride the bike, it doesn't feel heavy at all. So these, speaking of tubes, these are the Jumbo Jim from Schwalbe, the Evolution, and they are tubeless easy with a snakeskin sidewall, so you could actually go tubeless on this if you wanted to. Coming back up to the top here, you can see that Bluto does have a lockout, a remote lockout, which is interesting. And I suppose there are times, because the tires are providing you with some suspension, there are times when perhaps you would want to lock out the fork, and you can do that remotely. Being an air fork, of course, we have quite a few other adjustments that we can make. We've got some motion control adjustments here. We have air, of course, to adjust based on your weight and riding preference, and down here we have some rebound adjustment and the same kinds of things on the back on that Monarch RT. So lots of adjustability. Before I talk about the Bosch system, the Pure on Display, the 500 watt-hour battery, and the CX Drive, I should mention this is it's available in 2 frame sizes, and I really love the geometry that Bulls has chosen for this bike. Not only does it make the bike handle really well, it's very playful, but we've got a really nice low standover height here. So this is, again, a nice bike for, you know, if you're not feeling confident. It's nice because nice and low standover, easy to get on and off, easy to stop with it, easy to kind of tackle some technical sections of a trail that maybe in the past you would have been a little bit concerned about. You have these really great ergon grips here, kind of a mountain bike style. They are locking, so they're not going to swivel on you while you're riding. And a typical mountain bike saddle, Selle Royale, a little bit of gel in there. I don't mind it at all, but some people prefer to change that. That's an easy thing to change. No dropper post. I'd love to see that, so that's something we can add for you. That's an easy thing to add on. And the pedals, well, I'm always complaining about the pedals. These are not pedals that I would choose. They're okay, but if this were my bike, I would change to some wider platform pedals. And, you know, in defense of Bulls, that's not unusual for a manufacturer to just kind of throw on some pedals that probably won't make anybody happy, because it's hard. You know, everybody has different preferences, so they kind of expect that you'll change those up, and that's an easy change to make. So yeah, really interesting riding position, very comfortable that I find, and you know, a little bit of rise in the bars, and yeah, just a nice, comfortable, safe position that you can still ride very aggressively in. So as I've been mentioning, this has the Bosch CX Drive. You can see it down here. We've got a bash guard, aluminum bash guard to keep it safe, which is nice, and a nice big burly kind of chain ring or protector here, bash guard that's going to keep things away from your chain. The Bosch CX Drive has 75 Newton meters of torque. So this is Bosch's most powerful motor, lots and lots of torque for climbing hills. When you couple that with the fact that this is a mid-drive, not only are you getting your weight centrally located on the bike, it also means that when you change gears, it's impacting directly on the motor. So if they'd put a hub motor in here, you know, that would have shifted the weight to the back, made it hard to change a flat tire. It would also mean that when you change gears, it doesn't have an impact on the motor. Because the Bosch system is driving the chain, that means when you change to an easier gear, it impacts directly on the motor. That makes it really easy to climb hills. I also love that the Bosch system does have shift detection. So when you change gears, it actually knows that you're shifting, briefly cuts the power to the motor, so that way, you know, you're not really crunching through your gears. It's actually very smooth shifting. I really like that about the Bosch system. Of course, I also love the fact that they've got a couple service centers here in Canada, really easy to get spare parts should we need them. They have great service, super reliable, and then they do things like with the battery. This is a Bosch Power Pack 500. This is a Bosch standard battery. It's not something that's designed or made by Bulls. So you know that moving forward, years from now, you'll be able to get spares. And as an example of that, this is the Power Pack 500. A few years ago, 400 was the maximum size that was available. So when Bosch came out with the 500, they purposely made it backwards compatible. That way, if you'd bought a Bosch bike 4 or 5 years ago, you could walk into the store, buy a 500 watt-hour battery, and put it on your bike, which is pretty awesome. You do need a key to remove the battery from the bike, and when you remove it, you can charge it, but you don't have to remove it to charge it. There is a charging flap here, and you can just simply plug the charger. It looks like kind of a laptop charger. Plug that into there to charge the bike. Now you can charge after every ride. The battery doesn't have a memory, so you don't have to worry about battery management. The battery is very intelligent and will handle that for you. In fact, the battery is really quite clever, and that's what prolongs the lifespan of this battery. So compared to other e-bike batteries on the market, this one lasts a really long time. A lot of manufacturers will even suggest that it's going to last, maybe 1,000 complete charge cycles. And the way they're able to do that is through the battery management system. So when we hook this up to diagnostics, we can actually tell, the number of charge cycles, the temperature, maximum, minimum, all that data, which is really very interesting. So I love the reliability of the Bosch system, the interchangeability of the batteries, lots of torque for climbing hills, very responsive. And the other nice thing about the CX Drive is that it has this eMTB mode enabled. So Bulls is using the Purion display, which is nice. It's a compact display, it's not removable, really easy to read, and it's a little bit more crash resistant than, say, the Intuvia display that goes in the middle here. So that does kind of leave the space open for you. On the display, you've got your current speed, use your selectable information. Right now it's showing my level of assistance, which is off, and the battery level. To cycle through what is showing at the bottom there, I just press and hold the minus key, and that's going to cycle through trip information, total distance on the bike, the range, which is awesome. So if I just press plus eco here, it's saying, look, you've got about 89 kilometers left. If I move it up to tour, I've got 56 kilometers left. So that range calculator is really handy. It's based on the last few kilometers that you've ridden and how much battery remains. Press and hold the minus again, and it takes me back to the screen that's showing me my level of assistance. To select the level of assistance, I'm using the plus and the minus here. It's easier to press closer to the screen. They are rocker switches. You'll notice the next level is eMTB. That's a dynamic adaptive mode. It's perfect for riding this as a mountain bike because basically it's sensing your torque. The Bosch system is sensing your torque, your cadence, that is how quickly the bike is moving, and the speed of the bike 1,000 times per second. So it's basically reading your mind. You start pedaling harder because you've got a big climb coming up, and it automatically gives you the full power of turbo, which is like 300% and lots of torque. You get to the top of the hill, you've got a little bit of a technical section that you need to finesse. You start easing off on your pedaling, pedal a little bit lighter, and although the screen still shows eMTB, it's actually going to move the power down to maybe tour so that you're not getting too much power for a technical section of the trail. So this is great because you can kind of set it and forget it. You don't have to worry about adjusting it. Now, of course, you can manually choose turbo if you wish to get the maximum amount of power. There's a USB port on here, but it's only for diagnostics and for updating the software. That won't actually power a USB device, unlike the Intuvia display. If that was really important to you, we could retrofit this with the Intuvia display if you wanted. It does, however, have the walk mode, so there's a button down here that says walk. Press and hold that. The display says walk plus. That's your visual cue to now press and hold the plus button. It is a two-step process for safety reasons. You activate the mode with the walk button, and then you move the bike along with the plus button. As soon as you release the plus button, the bike will stop moving. And that's really handy for, maybe if you're trying to go up some stairs and go around a bypass on it, or you're getting off the ferry. They don't like it when you ride off the ferry ramp, so it can be really useful having that walk mode enabled. To reset the trip counter on the display here, we'd press and hold the plus and minus button at the same time, and that will actually reset the trip data. So let me go over to the trip data there. There we go, trip, press and hold, and it says reset, and it resets it for me. If you wish, you can actually wire in lights, and so if you press and hold the plus button, that would activate the lights if there were lights wired in. We can even retrofit now with the Monkey Link system, so some of the Bulls bikes come with the Monkey Link, this one does not, but the Monkey Link is a kind of a stem, magnetic stem system with wiring that allows you to clamp a light on front and rear, so that's something that we could do for you. Or you know, you could put your own light on and have it wired into the Bosch system, which is really handy. This would be a great night riding bike. While I'm over here, I should point out little things like the texture on the trigger shifters is different here, so it makes it really easy to figure out which one is which when you're riding. We've got a visual indicator of the gear that you're in as well. So I'm going to take you on a ride test, but if I've missed anything or if you have any questions, like I said, you can head over to our website at citruscycles.ca. It's a super fun bike if you're looking for something that's going to let you ride just pretty much everywhere. It's even good on pavement. Make a great commuter bike, especially if you're riding in adverse conditions. You can check out all the details on our website at citruscycles.ca. So I'll start the ride test on pavement here, heading towards the trail. And you know, obviously it's a full suspension fat bike. It's ideal for riding on trails, but I thought I'd give it a try on pavement as well to see, you know, how does it work as just a regular bike. And that's one of the neat things about a fat e-bike, is that you get all those benefits of the really wide tires, the stability, the traction, the control, especially in marginal conditions. You know, here in Vancouver Island, rains a lot in the winter, and this is a great kind of commuter bike with these fat tires when you get really slippery roads. And with an e-bike, you're not as concerned about the increase in rolling resistance from the tires. I gotta say, these Jumbo Jim tires are pretty good. I'm not really feeling like I'm pushing a heavy weight. They're actually rolling quite well. They're a little noisy, as you can tell, but that's to be expected when you've got so much contact patch on the ground. You know, even just cornering like that, you really notice that you get lots and lots of stability with these tires. So it wouldn't make a bad bike for getting to and from work during the week and then hitting the trails on the weekend. Of course, being full suspension, it's a little bit harder to add a rack, so that might be one of the downsides of using it, you know, kind of as an everything bike. Shifting is really smooth so far. It's got the XT shifters, it's quite nice. I was actually really looking forward to this test ride. I actually rode the hardtail version of this bike, the Monster ES, for almost a year, and I really enjoyed it. It was one of those bikes that really surprised me, because I thought, oh, you know, fat bike has very limited use. I'd use it maybe snow and sand, but I found it was a great all-round bike. Here I'm in through some broken pavement, potholes and things like that. And the nice thing about the full suspension is I'm not having to swerve or try to avoid them. I can just right through all the bumps, and it's nice and smooth. So if you are riding in traffic, then you're not having to avoid potholes, obstacles, slow down, speed up. You can just maintain a predictable speed and predictable line. That's going to make you safer in traffic. For trails, of course, the full suspension is awesome. It gives you lots more control over the bike. Not getting that feeling of being bucked around, as my daughter would say, thrown off your bike or the rear end, wandering. Tracks really, really well. We'll get on some trails in a moment, but so far, yeah, really enjoying the suspension. These tires are fantastic, even on the road and gravel like this, and the shifting is nice and smooth. bit of loose gravel there, and that's where these tires really shine. As we go through stuff like that, you don't have to worry at all. You're just going to float right over it. So right now I've got it on the EMTB mode, which is a dynamic adaptive mode. Works really well, especially for trails. But it's also nice if you're the type of person that puts it on turbo to climb the hill and then forgets that it's there. It does the rest of the ride in turbo when realizing you're not getting the battery range. I'll pump it up to turbo for the hill climb just to show you how that works. So if you don't want to pedal hard up the hill, put it in turbo. Otherwise, EMTB will actually move it into turbo as long as you're pedaling hard enough. You definitely want to add lights to the bike if you're riding on the road for safety, and if you're riding at night, maybe a helmet light as well. Yeah, you don't notice the curbs with the full suspension. Alright, we'll put her in turbo. And this is a moderately steep hill. See if I can get some other steeper hills in the video for you as well. But the CX Drive has plenty of torque. I'm not even having to go into my easiest gear. There, now I'm in my easiest gear and don't really need to be there. So lots of power for the hills, no problem. Even starting on a hill with the Bosch system is really easy. As soon as you put the pressure on the pedals, you're going to get that power that you need. Okay, I'll turn the camera off for a little bit till I get to the trail. Okay, now we're going to do a bit of a climb test here with the Bosch CX Drive. It's got some pretty dry conditions, some loose gravel, so these tires are going to be great for traction. Pump it up to turbo. Again, that's unnecessary. I could just leave it on the EMTB because I'm going to be pedaling hard enough that it will get me up there. So far, no problems. Not even having to work too hard. Of course, I still am working at it. There's a misconception about e-bikes that you're cheating if you choose to work as hard as you wish. A couple studies have shown you get the same amount of exercise even. But when I get to the top here, I'm not completely wiped out and I can keep enjoying the ride. Do this a few more times if I wanted to. So, no problem on that climb. Here we've got some very deep loose gravel. This is where these tires really shine. I mean, it's pretty much like riding on pavement. You're floating over it, not sinking in at all. Lots of control. So if you're riding on beaches or sand, or snow, these tires do great on that. You know, I am surprised how fast you can get going on this bike. It's the type of bike I really encourage people to ride, because you know, your perception of the bike is very different than the reality. I think it's a kind of a slow, lumbering type of bike, not easy to control, but finding it's really fun, playful, and faster than I thought it would be. So for that climb, I just kind of flew up the middle on a bike with narrower tires. I probably would have picked my line a little bit better, but that's just the beauty of these fat tires, is you don't have to pick your line. You can just ride right over the rocks just like that instead of avoiding them. And that to some people, you know, especially for customers that are maybe new to mountain biking, or they're just riding, you know, they don't have a lot of confidence on the bike, this gives them that confidence because it's very forgiving. You know, with these tires, you don't have to be as careful picking your line. You can kind of go everywhere, especially with the full suspension, and you're not going to have any problems. So that was so much fun coming up. I'm going to do it going down. Now, one of the things, yeah, here we go again, right over the rocks and roots, and no sideways slippage at all, like you might expect with some narrower tires. So yeah, it's just great being able to go where you want to rather than having to worry about picking your line. I am missing my dropper post. That's something I would probably add to this bike. It certainly is nice to have to give you that ability to get your center of gravity lower. No, it's certainly not necessary. Actually, I really like the geometry of this bike. It's got a nice low standover height. I can get myself down nice and low on it. But the thing is once you've had a dropper post, it's hard to go back to not having one. So let's try out these Magura MT5 brakes on this hill here with a lot of loose material and a clip on the right. No problem. And that's the kind of confidence you want to be able to have in your bike and your tires, that you're going to be able to handle stuff like that when you need to, or the rocks and roots like this. You just come down and go exactly where you tell the bike to go. And if you tell it to go somewhere a little crazy, it's still going to handle it quite well. I'll get back to this really loose gravel. I do this really sharp cornering and this kind of thing, I'm not having any slippage at all. It's quite incredible. So if you're trying to slalom your way down a hill with this kind of gravel on it, you could actually manage it and you can not wipe out. And I'll try to, as tempting as it is to go really fast down this hill, gotta keep my eye out for pedestrians. But it is nice having these quad piston brakes. Lots of modulation. Almost not the touch. Oh yeah, no problem stopping, and I love having the suspension. It's awesome. Got a little bit of fluttering in the front brake there. I've embedded the brakes in. It's a brand new bike. This is fun. I find myself riding more aggressively than I might on my other bikes with these tires. They just feel like glued to the ground. I can corner those sharper corners at higher speeds with loose material and not worry about wiping out, getting any kind of slippage, especially with full suspension. Combined with these tires give me loads of traction. And these tires, you could get into stuff like this, and I could even ride straight up the creek if I wanted to. Pretty awesome.